The Lamborghini had always been more than just a car to me. It was the culmination of years of hard work, long nights, and sacrifices. Every time I slid behind the wheel of my red Aventador and pressed the ignition, the low growl of the engine reminded me why it was worth every bit of the struggle it took to get here. Driving it through the neighborhood always drew stares, though reactions varied. Some neighbors waved with a smile, others snapped pictures from their driveways, and a few gave me the kind of look that suggested envy more than admiration. None. More so than Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, Karen never missed a chance to make her disdain known. She'd sneer when she saw me polishing the Lambo, shaking her head as if the car personally offended her. At HOA meetings, she made remarks about tacky displays of wealth and community standards being at risk when people brought in unnecessary eyesores. I knew the barbs were aimed directly at me, even if she tried to pass them off as general concerns. The irony was that most of the neighborhood loved seeing the car. People often slowed down just to look, and kids from the block lit up whenever they caught a glimpse of it pulling out of the driveway. One kid in particular couldn't take his eyes off it, Karen's teenage son. He must have been 16 or 17, with that restless, eager energy teenagers carry. While his mother scowled at the car, he couldn't stop asking about it. Whenever he saw me outside, he'd wander over, peppering me with questions. How fast could it go? Was it hard to drive? Did I ever race it? I'd answer politely, though I kept my guard up. Something about the way he looked at the car made me uneasy, like a kid staring at a locked candy jar. He was desperate to pry open. The contradiction between Karen and her son was striking. While she complained loudly about how such a vehicle doesn't belong in a family neighborhood, he clearly dreamed of nothing more than being behind its wheel. I could sense that tension growing each day. Karen's bitterness seemed to make her son's fascination stronger, almost rebellious. I tried not to read too much into it at first, chalking it up to harmless teenage obsession. But the way his eyes lingered a little too long on the car, and the way he asked just one question too many about how I stored the keys, left a nagging thought in the back of my mind that trouble was on its way. The weekend started like any other. I woke up early, poured myself a coffee, and stepped outside to admire the stillness of the morning. It was a ritual of mine: check the driveway, glance at the car, and just enjoy the sight of the Aventador gleaming under the sun. Only this time something was wrong. The driveway was empty. My heart skipped, and for a moment I convinced myself I had parked it in the garage the night before. I rushed to check, but the garage was empty too. The pit in my stomach grew heavier with each passing second. My Lamborghini was gone. Panic flooded my mind. I dialed the police immediately, barely able to keep my voice steady as I explained what happened. Within 20 minutes, a squad car pulled up. The officers asked for details: the make, the model, the color, the plates. I rattled them off quickly, trying not to imagine the car already stripped for parts or hidden somewhere I'd never find it. One of the officers spoke into his radio, and they reassured me they'd put out an alert. I stood there helpless, my coffee cooling on the steps, wondering how something like this could happen in my own neighborhood. It wasn't long before the phone rang with an update. The police had located the vehicle just a few miles away, crashed into a tree near the edge of town. My stomach dropped at the words, crashed. My car, my dream, was a wreck. The officers asked me to come down, and when I arrived, the sight made me dizzy. The Lamborghini sat twisted, its once perfect frame mangled, airbags blown, glass scattered across the pavement. The reality of it hit me like a punch to the chest, but nothing prepared me for what came next. The officer pointed to a report in his hand and explained that the culprit had already been caught trying to flee the scene. When he said the name, I froze in disbelief. It was Karen's son. He had somehow gotten hold of a spare key I kept tucked in the garage, used it to start the car, and taken it for what he probably thought would be a joyride. Instead, he had destroyed it in less than an hour. The anger and betrayal boiled in me. I had known his fascination wasn't harmless, but I never thought he'd actually dare to steal it. Standing there beside the wreck, I realized this was only the beginning of the nightmare. When I returned home that afternoon, exhausted from dealing with police reports and insurance calls, I expected at least a moment of quiet. Instead, I was greeted by Karen storming up my driveway, her voice already raised before she even reached me. "How dare you?" she snapped, pointing a finger at my chest as if I were the criminal. "You and that ridiculous car of yours are to blame for this mess." I stared at her, stunned. "Excuse me? Your son stole my car, crashed it, and you're blaming me?" Karen's face twisted with indignation. "He's just a child. A child who was tempted by you flaunting that thing around this neighborhood like some kind of trophy. You knew he admired it. You knew he was curious, and instead of being a responsible adult, you left it where he could get into trouble. You should have kept it locked away, out of sight. You practically set him up to fail." Her words hit me like nails on a chalkboard. I had never heard such twisted logic in my life. I tried to explain calmly that her son had broken into my garage and stolen a spare key, but she waved her hand dismissively, refusing to hear it. Keys should never be left where a teenager can find them. That's negligence on your part, not his. And now look at the damages. My son could have been seriously hurt. The audacity nearly left me speechless. She was more concerned about her son's bruised ego than the fact that he had committed grand theft auto. I told her flatly that her son was lucky he hadn't killed himself or anyone else, but Karen only grew louder, her shrill voice echoing across the street. Soon, a few neighbors gathered on their lawns, watching the spectacle unfold. Karen took their attention as an opportunity to escalate. "This man is bringing danger into our community. He parades around in that car, and now my family is suffering because of his recklessness," she shouted. I saw the neighbors exchange shocked looks, clearly recognizing how absurd she sounded, but Karen seemed convinced she was rallying them to her cause. By the end of the week, she had even put the matter on the agenda for the upcoming HOA meeting. According to the notice, she intended to discuss community safety issues caused by irresponsible displays of wealth. The sheer gall of it left me furious, but I also knew one thing. If Karen wanted to make this a public battle, I was ready. For her, the HOA meeting was held in the community clubhouse, and by the time I walked in, nearly every seat was filled. Karen was already at the front, standing tall with her arms crossed, clearly preparing for a performance. Her son sat off to the side, sulking, a bandage still visible on his forehead from the crash. I could feel the tension in the air as neighbors whispered among themselves, waiting for the drama to begin. As soon as the meeting was called to order, Karen launched into her tirade. She spoke with a practiced voice, painting me as some kind of reckless show-off who endangered the neighborhood. "It was inevitable something like this would happen," she declared. "That car is a hazard, a temptation, and completely inappropriate for a family community like ours. My son is the victim here. He was lured into making a mistake because this man chose to flaunt his wealth." I sat silently for a moment, letting her dig herself deeper before I stood. The room quieted, and I placed a folder of papers on the table, copies of the police report, photographs of the wreck, and a statement from the officer who arrested her son. "Everything she just said," I began calmly, "is a lie. The facts are right here. Her son broke into my garage, stole a spare key, and committed a felony. He wasn't lured, he made a choice. And that choice could have killed someone." I handed the papers to the HOA president, who skimmed them with widening eyes. A few neighbors leaned in, murmuring in disbelief as they saw the official report. Karen's confidence faltered for the first time that evening, but she tried to recover. He's just a teenager. This shouldn't ruin his life, she argued. No one's ruining his life but himself, I replied firmly. Actions have consequences. And for the record, my insurance company has confirmed that the liability falls on your household. You'll be responsible for the damages, every last dollar. The president cleared his throat and confirmed what I had already sighed. The HOA had no grounds to punish me, and Karen's attempt to turn the community against me had failed spectacularly. Neighbors who once kept quiet about her antics began speaking up, calling out her hypocrisy and bullying behavior. By the end of the night, Karen sat red-faced, her voice drowned out by the very people she thought she controlled. Justice wasn't just served through the legal system, it was delivered right there in the clubhouse. As for me, I left knowing my Lamborghini could be replaced, but Karen's reputation would never recover.